Hi everybody, my name's Andy, and this evening we're going to be interviewing Andy Wardle and his band The Innocents, and that's all thanks to Catherine Campbell from CJC Promotions. So we're going to be starting the meeting then. I think that the guys are all waiting to come in, so we're going to say hello to them now. Hey guys,
Hi, Andy.
you all right?
Yeah, good.
I'm just trying to.
Evening, Andrew.
You okay?
Yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, I'm a bit hot in here. I'm in my kitchen, so it's a little bit warm. So I've got one of those lights, that's shining on my face because it's the only room I can do it because I've got a little girl who runs about. She's only 2, so she runs about a bit at this time of night. So I've got to be the only safe room in the house, to be honest.
You would never know from the backdrop.
Yeah, I know. I've got this made especially for me chats.
Yeah, looking good. I'm in good company tonight. I've got Dave Grohl and Slash.
Whoa!
Watching over me. So
I've just been, funnily enough, the last guy I was interviewing from Detroit is a singer, and we were talking about the he started talking about artists. James Brown. He started talking about his influences, and I told him the story about when I was at a festival, and Foo Fighters were on the main stage. But we knew James Brown was on in one of the tents, so we're like going, right, okay. I mean, we could possibly see the Foo Fighters again, but not James Brown, because at that time it was like,
bit of a dilemma.
Yeah. So we did a bit of the Foo Fighters, and we went in the tent and we saw James Brown, and he died not shortly after. So I kind of got the best of both worlds,
Sounds good, yeah.
So, would you like to introduce yourselves individually to everybody?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm Andy. I'm the singer with The Innocents. Steve?
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm the guitarist with The Innocents.
That'll be Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee. I'm the drummer with The Innocents.
Come on, DT.
Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm the bass player with The Innocents.
Cool.
And now we're grown up.
This is quite. I quite like this setup because I'm just used to one-on-ones. You see, I'm used to just with Instagram. You can't do this with Instagram, though.
No, never done Instagram before. This is a completely new thing to me.
Yeah, Zoom is Zoom. The only thing I have with Zoom is the recording of interviews. Well, I've got like OBS now, and it enables you to record your screen and trim it. So that's the only way I can do it because my computer, I've got an Apple, and I just cannot get it to record Zoom interviews unless I don't have a separate app. So that's why I don't do a lot of Zoom, but I can do them now because I've got this app running on it, so it's fine. I can record it. So you'll get it in an MP4, So obviously, thanks to Catherine.
Yeah.
Wonderful CJC.
Yeah. We've got to give a big shout out to Catherine for getting this organised, and I got in touch with Catherine a few months ago on Facebook. I do a lot of networking. I see anything to do with music or media, and I just send people a message. And she said, "Yeah, great. I'll keep you in mind for future things." But she hadn't thought about doing interviews at that time. And I said, "Listen, I do a lot of interviews with loads of people that celebrities, actors, musicians." And I said, if you've got any musicians or anybody on your books or anybody you know of that could do with having an interview that you can record and then use, I said, get in touch. And that's why we're here right now. I just want to ask a quick question. I'm a bit of a novice to this Zoom meeting when there's a lot of people. How do I get my full face on the screen?
You're on my screen.
Oh, so I'm on, right?
Yeah,
okay.
You are, yeah.
Right. That's fine.
What happens is that your box will illuminate when you talk, and you might not see it full face, but we can see you. So every time somebody makes a noise, like Lee's just put a cup on his table, I can see him now.
Right. Yeah.
So it just enlarges the screen. So all I can see is you, Andy.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. You can see me with
I don't really have
me,
a problem with
me red carpet print behind us. It's a bit of a step up from what I used to do. I used to just sit in front of me like my kitchen top and just have like the kitchen lights, but now I've got one of these ring lights and stuff, and it just makes it look a lot better, So I like to start off interviews with, obviously, we all get into the media, we all get into our own craft, as it were, when we're growing up, or we want to be something when we grow up, when we maybe take that into fruition when we get to a certain age. How did you all get into music then? Is it something that's been with you since you were young at school, or when you were a kid?
Yeah, well, for me, definitely. I was more into, and I still do dabble a little bit in amateur dramatics. So because my dad was into that. My granddad was a singer, and my dad was an actor. So I followed my dad onto the amateur stage, and then I just thought, I really want to be at the front all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I could carry a tune, and so that's really how I sort of started. But yeah, it was amateur theatre really that got me.
It's a good ground, and it's a good ground. That's where I started when I went into professional theatre after that. So lots of people do start in amateurs.
Absolutely, yeah. So it was good grounding. It certainly gave me a taste for, the applause at the end is always nice.
Yeah. When we can get it.
So,
when we can get it.
When you get it, yeah.
What was that? What's applause? I've forgotten what that is.
Depends how many people there are in the
What's
room.
a crowd? A crowd for me is going into Morrison's. Don't, please no. Anyway, the rest of you, how did you all one by one? If we just like to go through, I think we'll structure it like this. We can each answer. If it's a question, we can all answer like this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have a go at this one. I traced the start of my musical journey back to Live Aid.
Yeah.
Watching that magnificent show with the best bands in the world on show for everybody on one stage all day, and it was a case of me and my brother looked at everything that was going on, and we just swore, I want to do that. I need to do that. Not from a musical background, we've kind of learned the hard way, bit by bit, piecemeal. But it's something that's never left me since. And guitars for Christmas, the normal thing. It's one of those things that once you've got the bug, you'll never get rid of it.
Yeah, you don't. The other guys that what was David?
Well, myself and Lynn, we started off actually buying acoustic guitars, and then it sort of developed. Lee got into the drumming side, and I just got into the bass guitar side. And we're going back a long, long time, and we've been in bands, and it's great. That's what we've always aspired to do that. And it was just really. Right from school days, really.
Yeah. What about you, Lee?
Yeah, and as Dave was saying, we met. We were only. We've been friends since we were at school. 3 or 4, right at the beginning of starting school, really. And there was when we would have been about perhaps 12, something like that, maybe. And we decided, we loved music. We were listening to Status Quo at the time, and listening to Beatles records, and some of the real classic stuff like The Who and Keith Moon was obviously a big influence on me. And myself and Dave and another guy called Gray, like you said, we got some acoustic guitars, and we wanted to form a band, and then quickly realised that that's not a band, that's just 3 people with guitars. So we needed a drummer at least. And I decided that I'd be the drummer, and not looked back since. Really, I love playing the drums. It's one of my favourite pastimes.
Yeah,
and I love it. Really, it's a passion now.
I find that. My brother, he's a bit older than me. He's 65 now. I'm in my 51 now, and my brother, he started off in bands and he was on guitar, he was on drums, and then he went to guitar, and then he went to vocals, and it tends to be a pattern with bands, like, you know, you kind of, you do everything, you know, you do a bit of everything, don't you, sometimes, you know, like that.
Yeah,
You find what fits, don't you?
Sorry?
You find what fits. I started
Yeah.
on the drums, couldn't afford a drum kit, and you go around the houses until something just lands with you, and then you just think, I found it, I'm
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I agree.
And speaking about your music, I mean, I've listened to some of it obviously as well, and I like the fact that, you know, if you were going to explain your music to somebody, we're not just going to touch on one genre, because we're touching on different genres here. We're touching on maybe a little bit of the 80s pop, we're touching on a bit of rock, we're touching on a bit of James Bond as well. Is that how you see your music then? I mean,
I don't know how. I don't know how. I mean, we just make the way we make music is we kind of all get together in a room and then somebody starts and we all jump in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never really something that we consciously sit down and say we want it to sound like this or that or the other. And the 80s thing was completely blindsided us. When a friend of mine put it on his webcast for a start, the single Rise on his webcast, and he said he felt that he thought that I'd got a voice somewhere between Jim Kerr and Andy Bell from Erasure,
Yeah.
and I had never even, you know, they weren't. I mean, I listened to Simple Minds a lot. I like to have heard it all. I wouldn't have said they were like major influences on how I sound. It's just how I sound, what has developed over the years. And I think the same for the rest of us as a band. We just kind of channeling it, really. We don't sit down and say, right, we want to write a song that sounds like this. Somebody will start, you know, typically Steve will start noodling in the corner in a rehearsal and like, oh, that sounds good, and then Lee will jump in, Dave will jump in, and then I jump in singing any old crap that sounds half decent to get the melody. And usually by the end of that, you know, somebody will get an iPhone out and record it, and we got something that sounds half like a song, and then we develop it from there, really.
I mean, it is. I listening to the tracks, I think if you sat somebody down and hadn't read your bio and said, right, what do you think this sounds like? And I said, like, Rise, I thought, wow, yeah, you can see the 80s rock in there, and I Come Alive, certainly a Bond. There's certainly those chords in there that sound like that classic. I would say certainly the modern Bond films, you know, that you've got now, though, that opening is very synonymous to that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's Steve's department.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that I'm a huge Bond fan. It's purely accidental and coincidental. But what you do get with the Bond theme tunes, I think, from the sort of mid '60s onwards, is that sort of ethereal feeling of the music. It sets a mood and it sets a tone. And I think when you're writing a song, especially when we write a song, that's kind of paramount, sort of front and center. We need a feeling. It's not necessarily what's your music about, but I think if we got a feeling, whether it's mystery, anger, angst, or whatever, one of those things, it kind of underpins the riff of the song and you know the beat of the song and probably what Dave brings to the bass line of that counterpoints what I bring, and then as soon as we've got that kind of mood, if you like, I think that's where Andy will then jump in and either completely give a 180 on what we were actually trying to go for and bring something completely different to the party, which is quite often, and it's quite shocking in how effective it is, or we all channel down the same line and it becomes, I didn't think we could be that good.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not that we actually sit down and go, what do we want to sound like this time? We don't do that. It's usually tuning up stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that, I don't know if you heard this story, just very briefly. I've had a few people I've met over the years who work with John Barry, and the story goes that you probably heard about it, that when the guitarist who was on the Bond came up with a Bond theme tune, he just basically said to him, strung me some dan 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 dan, and then suddenly he just went dan dan dan. He went, whoa, that's it. That's how the Bond theme came about, basically.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a lot of our riffs and a lot of our music. Don't overthink it. If it sounds good in the moment, it'll sound good to 1,000 people, 1 million people.
Yeah.
I think where I mean, I've definitely been in bands where I try to write that perfect riff or that moment, and it never quite works because it isn't flowing. And we're really good, I think, in this band at capturing a moment.
Yeah. Well, how did the name come about? How was the band formed? Were you friends before that? Did you know each other before that on the circuit, or was it just did you all just meet and say, right, we're going to form a band? David and Lee, what's your opinions on that?
How it really came about was myself and Lee and Andy had been in bands right from the early 80s, and then we sort of we went our separate ways a little bit towards the end of the 80s, and then got back together really by chance. And Steve was somebody that Lee had done some work with in a previous band, and it just all seemed to come together. And like Steve says, it's just something that just happens. The songs that we do just happen. We don't sort of set aside an hour or two to write songs. It just happens, And we've started stuff as well that actually we've just discarded,
Where did the name come from then, Lee? Where did the name come from?
It just came out of nowhere, really. It was my idea, but I honestly can't tell you where. It was. We'd been trying to think up some good names. We'd had names like Strange Cod and all sorts of things like that. Strange Gods.
What a classic band they were.
Call it Strange Cod. But anyway, yeah. So there was no real epiphany with a name. It was just something we plucked out of the air, or I plucked out of the air. Gave it to the lads, and we all sort of thought that might be a good. That sounds good. It sort of fits us really, because obviously we're not the Innocents, but it works quite well.
None of us are at our age.
Well, exactly. No,
it's a juxtaposition.
It does work well.
It's a juxtaposition that we all seem to like. And that's the way it works.
Tell us a bit more about them. Tell everybody about the debut album Rise and the writing of that and how the songs have come about and about the collaborative effort that you've all put into that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, what we do generally is we'll start playing a song. It can be a drum pattern that I start with. It can be a riff that Steve's been noodling around with. It can be a bass line that Dave will start, and we just. Andy it's his good word. He says it's an organic process, and it is an organic process. Basically, we all start with some sort of sound, whether it's drums, guitar, or bass, and we just start playing together, and then we go all the way through a song without stopping, with changes and everything already in there, until we get to the end of a song, and we write them like that. It's miraculous. Andy comes in and puts his melody over the top with words that sound like words but aren't. It's just him getting the phrasing and the melody. But it just flows from the beginning to the end until we've got an almost finished song, and then we go back and we work on it to just tidy up the edges and maybe, alter a middle eight or whatever. And that's how it works every single time. That's how we work. That's how we write.
And coming.
Yeah, sorry, Dave.
Sorry, I was saying, coming back to the actual recording process, the reason why we decided to record the album, to get this album recorded, was because we got material, but then Rise came along, the actual song Rise, and we probably really did that in a couple of hours, and we thought that was the catalyst for us to actually push ahead and do the album, because we thought Rise was quite a good song, and obviously we thought we got some other good songs as well, and we've been sort of like thinking of doing an album, but we never really got around to doing it, if you know what I mean. And so it really last January really that's when we recorded it, and again, we were going to have a launch in March.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Then
actually.
COVID comes along.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. Yes, I mean that. Obviously, you would have had a launch and maybe a tour, a UK tour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, we got plans to do a lot with. Well, to see obviously how it would. Hopefully, it would be received well from a launch gig, and the launch gig was literally the weekend when they closed the venues.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about that the week previously. Because I think at that point the government was saying, well, we're not sure what we're going to do. We might have to ask people to socially distance. We're not quite sure what's going to happen, and this was the Monday. By the Thursday, obviously,
that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, whatever would have come from that. But having said that, when we put the promotion in the hands of Catherine at CJC, and things have really started to take off. There's been quite a lot of interest in it since then. So, in a way, it's been a bit of a double-edged sword. It's been a good and a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows what would have happened? We can only speculate and wait until we're out.
Exactly.
We're
I mean,
play again.
Yeah, I mean that's I always say to people, you're kind of hoping that I hope by Easter, summer certainly we'll be in a position where we're not COVID. Well, COVID will still be there probably, but we'll be able to get back to live gigs and. I think I don't know about you, but it's weird because when I see live gigs recordings now, I'm kind of going, wow, was that what it was like? I'm kind of because it just feels like we've not lived it somehow.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going, there's loads of people stand next to each other. What was that like? It's just weird. It's a weird feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is really weird. When you look on the TV, you think, I mean, everybody does it now. You see something that was recorded last year, and you looked at it, you go, oh God, they won't be doing that now. There's too many people, and it almost feels a bit like that's not the normal anymore, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking that the last gig I went to, I think, was at Rock City in Nottingham, and it was Rival Sons back in sort of mid to late 2019, and it was absolutely heaving. I mean, literally sweating from people in front of you and behind you sweating.
Yeah.
Nice picture, that, isn't it?
No, we miss it. We miss it. we miss the beer going over the top of your head. Whoa, what's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know where I'm coming from on that one.
Indeed,
yeah. I mean, Andy, listening to especially your vocals, I mean, yeah, you certainly have some range there. Is this something that you've always had? Is it something that you developed and you thought, wow, I can go from there to there, actually?
Yeah, it's just developed over the years, really, to be honest. Yeah, I've always aspired to have. I mean, when I was young, I listened to sort of people like Freddie Mercury a lot.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be Freddie, and then I wanted to be Ronnie James Dio, and then I wanted to be Bono, and all these people have got big ranges. So I suppose the people that I was taught by, that was where they were headed, and so imagine naturally that's where I mean, I think when I was younger, I was struggling for the high notes, to be fair, but you develop it over time, and I think I've got more of not only a relaxed style, but a bit more of a relaxed attitude about singing now. Whereas it's not so important to be the loudest, the greatest, the most powerful, the highest, the biggest range or whatever. It's just kind of I think I know sort of what sounds good, and I'm able to embody that, I suppose.
Do you think that as a sort of your age, I find as I've got older, I when I go for parts on stage, and certainly in tours and things, I know what I can do, and I can walk into an audition and they say, right, we want you to sing this song. I'll go, I can't sing that song. Whereas when I was younger, I says, I'll give it a go. But now you kind of go, as you get older, where your limitations are as a singer, a performer, and then you just go, right, I'm not doing anything above that, but I'll do that. That's how I am now, anyway.
Exactly, yeah. Over time, as you quite rightly say, you know what it'll do. You know what your equipment's capable of. and so you just play to your strengths really. But and just being a bit more chilled about it. I was always a bit nervous about recording because it's different to when you're playing live, and it's kind of you're naked. You're there with just your voice, you're detached from the rest of the band. Whereas you can get away with stuff live that you couldn't possibly get away with in the studio. But I found it quite a cathartic experience recording the album because ultimately we were all quite relaxed about it. The guy that was producing the album was fantastic. He let us do what we wanted to do, what we needed to do. He gave us advice when we needed advice. And so we found that, particularly with the vocals, which were kind of like the last thing we recorded in each take of each song, I would sort of go in the booth and do the lead a couple of times, maybe do a bit of double tracking and some backing vocals. And then it actually gave us a space to think, actually, some, a fifth harmony would sound nice here, or an octave below, or an octave above would sound good here. So we got a bit of freedom to do that as well. So yeah, I got kind of rid of my recording bogeyman at the same time, which was brilliant.
I just want to ask a question to the other guys as well. I mean, what was the first live experience that you went to where you thought, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to be that person up there. That's the person I want to be. I want to be performing. I want to be in front of a crowd. I'll just go around the whole group now and let everybody have a say on this one.
Steve?
Well, go, Steve.
I mean,
Live Aid, you said though.
Yeah, Live Aid. You mentioned, yeah.
I start. I mean, every single time I go to a gig, every single time I want to be that person up there. But it started De Montfort Hall, Leicester, Status Quo, 1986, and it was my first ever live gig, and it was like, oh my good night, this is just the power, the energy, the audience participation, that whole energy. It was beyond electricity. It was something that moved every part of my being to say, need to do, want to do. And it was one of those things that I've been to 1,000 gigs or whatever since, tens of I can't even count the amount of gigs I've been to since. I remember that one like it was yesterday, because it was the first. Because I had no frame of reference. I'd seen videos and concerts on Top of the Pops and all that, and nothing can prepare you for that energy, that emotion. So yeah, that for me was the time. But every single gig, every single time, I just want to go. Every time.
What about you, David?
Yeah, my first gig was Status Quo, but that was 1977.
You can't just copy me, Dave.
There's a theme here.
I think your body just has.
It was the Rocking All Over the World tour, 1977, and myself and Lee and Ray, another lad that we spoke about earlier, we went, and we were that young. I think we were 15, and we didn't realise that even though we got a ticket, because we wanted to be down the front, we went straight from school, and we were outside. We were about 3 back from the front getting in, and we went down to the very front when we got in, and there was a support band called Nuts, and we watched them, and they were okay, fair enough. It was a live experience. By the time Status Quo came on, we were right at the back because everybody had pushed us out of the way because we were just skinny whippersnappers.
Yeah.
But yeah, great. It was a fantastic gig, fantastic experience. And
Was that the same for you, Lee?
Yeah, the first one, it was brilliant. It was for a 15-year-old kid watching Status Quo. I mean, we got a denim and a Status Quo patches, and we were proper fans. It was superb. I mean, they did great live anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I would say my drumming what set me on the road of really loving drums when I first saw Rush at De Montfort Hall in Leicester. Watching Neil Peart play, it was just, I'd never seen anybody play like he did. I mean, Keith Moon, yeah, great, but just watching the legendary Mr. Peart, oh my God. That was it. It was like, I've got to have a kit like that. I've got to try and play like him. You can see, I mean, people like Dave Grohl, influenced by him, just massive fans. Taylor Hawkins, just love, from the Foo Fighters, and he's Neil Peart's influenced so many drummers, so many young kids to play, and he did exactly the same to me.
So Andy, tell us about the Status Quo concert you went to in 1977.
I didn't go.
Were you born?
I didn't go. I was never into Status Quo. No, I think the live gig that really got me thinking, I definitely want to do that was Ronnie James Dio, and I can't remember what year it was, but it was his first solo album, Holy Diver. It was that tour. Again, it was at De Montfort Hall in Leicester, and the power in that guy's voice and his presence and his total command of the audience was quite awe-inspiring. And it's bizarre because I was into really quite heavy rock when I was a young kid. Then I sort of went away from that and went into sort of like a new wave of rock in the 80s. And U2 were my big the band that really I think made me think, I'd like to do that. Was when I've seen U2 in the War album, the early years when Bono used to walk around waving a white flag in the air and climbing up the scaffolding at gigs and stuff. And that's the image in my head that made me think, you know what, I think I might quite want to do that.
What I was just going to ask you, let's put ourselves in a situation where we are in a COVID-free, safer environment to do what we want to do next year. What's the plans for 2021? Say from, let's say, Easter onwards, because it's not going to be until then, maybe until we see a kind of what the vaccine's going to do, whether it's going to be distributed right or etc. What's the plans for next year?
Steve?
Any of you? That's fine. It's an open table.
We want to get the launch done.
Yeah.
We have to get this launch out.
Reset.
We were so close. We were so close, and it was all taken away. We rebooked it the 7th of November, and then the second lockdown happened the day before. So I don't want to put a date out there because it might jinx it. We have to get this done. We got loads of people, just chomping at the bit. But after that, we want to get out and gig more, and potentially do a sort of maybe not a UK, but a sort of a Midlands tour, depending on what the restrictions are.
Yeah.
And there's ideas flowing already, so we're also keen to get something else recorded as well. So if we can't do the album launch on, our terms, we'll do the album launch and maybe an EP tour or something like that. So there's plenty more material in the pipeline. There's already some waiting. There's many songs down ready to be recorded, and I tell you what, we are just absolutely chomping at the bit to get it out there.
Yeah, no, you found how you feel.
It's awful at the minute. I saw Lee yesterday. I was just saying, I'm just like a coiled spring. I just want to get out there and do something.
So where can people get a hold of your music, and where can they find out a little bit more about the band?
Lee?
The website, go to our website, theinnocents.net. There's a lot of info on there, plus some tracks you can listen to as well. You can buy the album or the single on any platform, really, Amazon, iTunes, Spotify, etc. Go over and see us on Facebook as well. Catherine and Tina Sherwood, big advocates of ours, and do great work for us. So the album's actually just it's massive. We're getting so much positive feedback that it's taken us a bit aback, But it's been brilliant, it's absolutely brilliant. So like Steve says, we're really chomping to get out there and show people what we can do,
Well, thank you very much, guys. You only get a certain time on Zoom, and then it's just,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like I always say it's. I don't know if it's like the Oscars where you're making a speech and the thing goes down and the music comes on.
Yeah.
Whoa, there you're off. I'm going to say well, thanks, Steve, and you're obviously there with your Marshall speaker. You're in the mood. Thank you, Lee, and you're like a manager in an office going to sign an artist up. Andy, you look like you've got your paintings there, you've got your canvases, and I mean, David, you look as though you're backstage somewhere, to be fair. I keep thinking you're going to actually go out onto the stage from where you are.
That's what he does, on his own.
Yeah.
Mr. Grohl's just tuning his guitar up. I've got a backing band here,
Yeah.
so we're ready to go.
Yeah. Thanks very much, lads. I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully next year you can we can get out and do what we love, and not have to be as penned in.
Perhaps you can actually talk to us, Andy. Face to face.
Yeah, I know.
The venue somewhere, that'd be brilliant.
Talking to people's great, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Best of luck. Keep in touch,
Great talking
and
to you, mate.
if you need any help with any promotion or anything, your Q&A or anything like that's what I do. So if you need any help in the future, give us a buzz.
Cool.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, lads.
Mate.
Stay safe.
Thank you very much. All the
Cheers.
best. Take care.
Take care.
Cheers. Thanks, Andy.
No, you're right. It's only been this week. It's a one-off. I know. See, if we had a house, I'd be doing this in a spare room. I'd be doing it in a room. I wouldn't be doing it in the kitchen. It's all right. It was, darling. It was just. It's not gonna. I'm kind of like. This was a one-off this week. It was a one-off. But generally, I'd only do one a week. It was last night. Was a job. And if it had worked out, that would have been a job. I know. It's alright, it's finished now.